11 spine-chilling true stories of sinister friends. Discover the cursed secrets they hid from you. Lisa sat on the living room couch, holding her breath as the storm raged outside. Thick clouds blotted out the moon, plunging her quaint suburban neighborhood into darkness. The kind of darkness where shadows twisted unnaturally, whispering secrets of a world she thought she knew. The Johnsons' laughter wafted through the slightly ajar window. It should be sounded friendly, normal even. But something in their voices sent a chill down her spine. It all started innocently enough. Just a few months ago, Lisa had everything: a stable job, a loving husband, and 2 vibrant kids. But the abrupt job loss had altered everything. As each day passed, the bills piled higher while hope dwindled. When the Johnsons stepped in, offering help, she felt a flicker of relief, like a life raft thrown into turbulent waters. Yet as the days went by, their kindness morphed into a kind of dependency that wrapped around her family like a vice. Her phone buzzed with another rejection, the sting sharper than the last. "I thought we were safe here," she whispered to herself. Outside, the neighborhood hummed with the familiar sounds of children playing and lawns being manicured. But beneath the surface of manicured lawns, something felt deeply wrong. At night, she would catch strange shapes darting across the Johnsons' backyard, shrouded in darkness. Those vivid flowers they had planted bloomed with unsettling intensity, casting an acrid sweet scent that hung heavy in the air, suffocating in its allure. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then came the day that shattered everything. Emily had gone over to play with the Johnsons' kids, and Lisa felt that familiar twinge of unease bending her heart. Hours passed, and the evening shadows stretched long, swallowing the sunlight that just a moment ago had painted the park vibrant. The laughter that normally echoed from the Johnsons' home had faded into an eerily oppressive silence. She dashed next door, panic clawing at her throat. "Emily!" she yelled, dread creeping into her bones. Knocked on the door first softly, then harder. The Johnsons answered, their smiles too wide, too perfect. "Oh, she's just playing hide and seek," they chimed with unnatural cheerfulness. But deep down, Lisa felt the dread pooling in her gut, making it hard to breathe. Looking around, her neighborhood felt transformed. Smiling faces now looked suspicious, the camaraderie of the past replaced by a miasma of shared guilt and fear. She could see the subtle exchanges, glances, gestures, passive nods that dared not break the surface. With ice in her veins, Lisa couldn't shake the whispers she now sensed flowing through the neighborhood, an undercurrent of old folklore, ancient rites, traditions of sacrifice veiled in suburbia's double-edged charm. Everything she thought was safety melted into shadows, and the anxiety twisted her stomach as she pieced it together. Her daughter was at the center of something unspeakably dark, a legacy that had bound their community. Heart racing, she had to confront the Johnsons. The storm intensified as she stood at their doorstep, rain cascading like tears. "Where is my daughter?" she screamed, desperation rising. The neighbors gathered under ominous skies, curious yet unconcerned, until their beaming faces twisted into something chilling. This was no longer a community. It was a congregation, a hollowed collective bound to a grisly truth. As her heart raced, she turned to flee, breath quickening, the atmosphere thick with a suffocating sense of impending doom. But a shadow flickered behind the trees, and she felt eyes upon her, drawn into the darkness beneath the serene facade. Her body screamed to run, but the malignant truth emerged between silent gasps, a terror woven into their lives that wouldn't let her escape. And as ghostly shapes began to materialize from the shadows, she realized the ultimate horror lay not in their actions but in the desolation of survival itself. Would she uncover the dark heart of their suburb before it was too late? Time felt almost suspended as a nightmarish question loomed. Would she become just another lost soul in the web of forbidden traditions? Lisa stumbled back, adrenaline surging through her as the cold rain soaked her clothes. The neighborhood she had known her entire life morphed into a twisted landscape of horror. The faint flickers of warmth and familiarity were replaced by the biting cold of terror. Those once friendly faces were no longer offering solace. Their eyes reflected something darker, something primal. A rustling noise behind her made her whip around. Thick shadows pulsed, almost alive, slinking like predators through the wet grass. Her breath came in sharp gasps as she backed away from the encroaching darkness. "Emily!" she screamed, her voice cracking with raw panic. With every word, it felt as though the shadows advanced, thickening, coiling around her in an ominous embrace. The Johnsons stood there, their smiles unbroken, yet hollow, as if they derived pleasure from her growing terror. "She's just playing," they repeated, this time with a sing-song cadence, their voices intertwining in a twisted harmony. But behind them, she saw the flicker of something, a small hand peeking from around the corner of their house, obscured by the monstrous shapes lurking in the night. It sent a jolt of fear right into her core. A drowning sensation engulfed her. She was losing her grip on reality. She grasped at her fear like a lifeline, holding it tight. "You have to let her go!" The words tore from her throat, desperate and raw. Instead of compassion, laughter erupted, a low, rhythmic chuckle echoing in the now turbulent air. Her neighbors, no longer benign, stood as a wick of darkness, merging with the storm. The storm's wind howled as if it was either trying to drown her pleas or carry them away. Either was equally terrifying. Lisa dug her heels into the mud. "I know what you are!" she cried, disbelief cracking through her shattered confidence. As shadows gathered, coalescing into vague forms, the air became sticky with fear and an electric pulse of dread that veiled the night. The Johnsons advanced, their movements synchronized like puppets on strings. "You know nothing," they hissed in tandem, their innocent faces now twisted into malicious masks of glee. The temperature dipped, her breath forming clouds that mirrored her panic. "Emily!" she called again, heart pounding like a war drum, each beat screaming for her daughter to answer. She pushed through the fog of fear, willing herself to break the spell gripping her. Her memories of the day when she first met the Johnsons skimmed past her mind like a film reel, pleasant faces, laughter, a harmless game of charades that now seemed grotesque against the backdrop of the night. But then the laughter stopped. An uneasy silence gripped the air. It was worse than laughter. It was a blankness that buzzed through her body, and suddenly she felt it, a skittering underfoot, the ground shifting. The roses in the Johnsons' garden began to bend, petals twisting as a dark root, sprouting in the very ground she stood on. A warning bell rang in her head, a primal instinct clawing up her throat, demanding retreat. Then she heard it, a whisper, faint but clear. "Join us." Every hair on her body stood at attention. She hesitated, moisture stinging her eyes. The shadow shapes inched closer, intensifying the feeling of being rooted to the spot. Fight or flight fought for dominion over her paralyzed limbs. Her mind raced. What did they want? What would they do if she refused? The realization struck hard. They were offering something far beyond friendship. It was an invitation to a nightmare alive beneath their grinning masks. It was the price of allegiance, not of loyalty, but of sacrifice. As the whispering darkness enveloped her, she caught a glimpse of Emily's terrified face before it vanished back into the depths of the night. With one last desperate cry, she lunged toward the house. But the world tilted, and she tumbled into darkness. What would she offer to save her daughter? Would she be able to resist the binds of the neighborhood, or would she submit to the shadows? The whispers grew louder in her mind. "Join us." Lisa's senses spun wildly, the darkness swallowing her whole. She felt weightless, hanging between dimensions, one foot still anchored in the world she knew, the other teetering toward oblivion. The whispers became cacophonous, echoing in her skull like dozens of voices merging into a single horrific chant. "Join us, join us." The ground suddenly solidified beneath her, jolting her nerves. Lisa gasped, eyes snapping open. She was in a room, dimly lit, with shadows creeping at the wall's edges. Instantly, her eyes darted around, searching for her daughter. Panic stomped through her chest as the reality of her surroundings began to crystallize. It felt contaminated, wrong. The wallpaper, once a soft beige, was tattered and stained with dark streaks that resembled dripping blood. Her pulse quickened. "Emily!" she shouted, her voice trembling as it rang against the silence wrapping around her. To her right, she caught a fleeting glimpse of movement. A flicker of a tiny silhouette danced just out of reach. Lisa lunged forward, heart hammering against her rib cage, but as she drew closer, the figure twisted away, disappearing into the shadows with a fearsome swiftness. "Emily!" Nothing. Through the eerie stillness, she felt a presence looming just out of sight. Goosebumps erupted along her skin, and she clenched her fists, fighting the rising tide of despair. Then came the laughter, a haunting echo behind her like a bell tolling in the depths of a grave. She turned slowly, dread seeping into her bones. Standing at the room's threshold were the Johnsons, silhouetted against the doorway. They radiated an unsettling glow. Their smiles were wider now, stretching impossibly across their faces, teeth glinting in the gloom. "Welcome back," they intoned in unison, their voices layering over each other in a melodious, sinister duet. "Where's my daughter?" she spat, defiance sparking a flicker of strength within her. "Don't worry about her, Lisa," they cooed. "She is safe for now." The shadows around them twitched, quivering eagerly like starved predators sensing fresh prey. Lisa backed away, her mind racing for an escape route. But the solid walls pressed tighter as if the very house were in collusion with these fiends. "What do you want?" she demanded, though her voice trembled, betraying her fear. "Your sacrifice to join us." A chill vied for supremacy against the heat of her defiance. "I want tea," she whispered, but even as she said it, doubt crept in. What if they meant to take Emily? What if resisting meant losing her for good? The Johnsons stepped forward, shadows melding with their forms, their features warping in the dim light. "It's too late," they sang. "Once you're in the neighborhood, you cannot leave." The floor vibrated beneath her feet. She could sense the pulse of the house, the beating heart of the nightmare wrapped around her. The whispers echoed louder, hungry, desperate. "Join us." Lisa felt tears sliding down her cheeks, her resolve wavering. But above all, love for Emily ignited a fire in her chest. "No!" she screamed, the word ripping from her as she turned to run toward the rear of the room. "This is your chance," the Johnsons called, a twisted glee underscoring their words. But Lisa rushed onward, desperate to find a way out. Just as she reached the door, a shadow lunged at her from the corner of the room. The figure had no face, just a gaping void where its features should be, and as it lunged, screams tore from her throat. She ducked, narrowly avoiding it, and burst through the door. In the hallway, cold air stung her skin as she sprinted down the corridor. Room after room slid past her, all warped and twisted with despair. The laughter chased her, reverberating off the walls, merging with the whispers in a sickening chorus drawing ever closer. Just ahead, another dark figure appeared. "Emily?" she dared to hope. But the figure melted away, leaving her alone once more. And then, the walls began to close in. Each step felt heavier, the air thickening, binding her as if the very house had teeth hungry for her fear. "Join us." Lisa's heart broke at that moment. "What will you do to my daughter?" she screamed into the empty void. The laughter replied again, now punctuated by something darker, a growl of hunger resounding in her ears. Suddenly, the hallway stretched on forever, dark doorways beckoning her with the promise of secrets. But which door would lead her back to Emily? Each choice felt like stepping into a trap. She could feel the oppressive pull of the shadows tightening around her. The whispers transformed, threading through her mind. Join us or lose her forever. Time slipped away. This was her moment. She had to choose. Would she face the darkness? Would she barter her soul for her daughter, or would her heart break in two? And in the oppressive silence that followed, one word echoed in the corners of her mind: run. The corridor twisted like a serpent, dark doors looming on either side. Each one seemed alive, pulsing with a malevolent breath. Lisa felt the suffocating weight of fear wrapping around her throat. Which door held Emily? Which would lead her to safety? The laughter echoed again, sharper this time, as if the shadows themselves delighted in her torment. Choose. Choose. They taunted, their voices blending with the whispers swirling in her mind. Each syllable was a dagger, striking at her will to push forward. She stumbled, heart racing, chest constricting, and pressed her back against the cold wall, desperately scanning the doors. Point one stood slightly ajar, a flicker of soft light escaping. Hope surged briefly within her, a beacon amid the darkness. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. The Johnsons were behind her, their smiles stretching wider, eyes glimmering with perverse joy. Join us, Lisa! Forever family, they chimed in unison, their words wrapping around her like chains. No! She gasped, shaking her head violently as tears streamed down her cheeks. Mustering all the strength she could gather, she staggered toward the light, readying herself for whatever lay within. As she pushed the door open, a chill swept through her. The room was lavishly decorated, but the colors were muted. Shadows flickered at the edges, whispering secrets. In the center stood a mirror, antique and grand, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Emily? She called, heart pounding as hope and dread collided. The mirror rippled, and for an instant she glimpsed a reflection, Emily's face, blinking with wide, terrified eyes. Lisa's breath hitched. But just as quickly, the image twisted, warped into a smudged shadow that vanished. Emily! She screamed, hands trembling as she reached toward the mirror's surface. Step closer, Lisa, a voice sang from the depths of the glass, sweet, enticing, but laced with poison. That's not her. The warning hit her like a slap. But fear clawed at her throat. Join us, the mirror beckoned, almost desperately, as if it yearned for her. Fight it! Lisa shouted at herself. She took a shaky step back, heart thundering as the laughter returned, a maddening chorus of delight sharpening in intensity. With a grunt, she turned and dove through a doorway on her left, narrowly escaping the mirror's gaze. The walls felt alive, whispering as her fingers brushed against them, pleading for her to stay or join the darkness. Frantic, she pressed on, another door racing toward her. Lisa flung it open and gasped out. A nursery, her daughter's nursery, toys scattered on the floor as if left in the middle of playtime. A soft lullaby floated through the air as if the past had come alive to mock her. Emily! She whispered, panic crashing over her like a wave, but something felt off. The colors seemed too bright, too cheerful. As she stepped inside, it felt suffocatingly serene, like stepping into a pit of false hope. And then she saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner, smaller than the Johnsons, smaller than a grown person. It turned and stared at her. Emily? Lisa's voice broke as her heart raced. The figure moved closer, but it was not her daughter. It had dark, hollow eyes and a grin that stretched too wide. Join us, it hissed, the innocence of a child twisted into a grotesque parody. No! Lisa screamed, recoiling in horror. The room tilted, every object within it vibrating with life, thrumming with a sinister energy. The lullaby turned into a cacophony, shrill and discordant, echoing through her head. Desperate, recalling the embrace of shadows behind her, she spun and dashed for the nursery door. Join us, Lisa, or lose her forever. She ran once more, slamming into the corridor where dark figures danced in the periphery, drawing closer. Breath itching, she saw a door at the end labeled exit, a mockery beneath the weight of despair. But could it lead her back to Emily? Would escape mean abandoning her? Choose, the voices chorused again, pressing, persistent, clawing at her mind. Lisa stopped, her heart racing, the sweat freezing on her skin. Would she risk everything? With one last glance back into the shadows that whispered her name, she made her decision. But would she find Emily waiting for her on the other side of the door, or would it be too late? Run! The voices echoed louder, drowning out the lullaby as she lunged for the exit. The doorknob turned slowly. The door creaked open, releasing a gust of stale air that licked at Lisa's face. It felt like stepping into an abyss. Her heart hammered wildly in her chest as she crossed the threshold. She was plunged into darkness, and the world behind her, the sinister whispers, the eye-watering laughter, was swallowed by the void. Instinct pulled her forward. She moved blindly, The unfamiliar ground beneath her bare feet felt damp and clammy. Each step came with a sense of dread, echoes of her thoughts spinning out of control. "Emily," she called softly, her voice trembling through the thick darkness. A faint glow emerged ahead, pulsating softly like a heartbeat. Lisa squinted, heart racing, face taut with fear. She trudged toward it, all the while feeling eyes upon her, watching from the unseen corners. The light revealed a room, draped in white, eerily soft. She stopped short. The room was filled with cribs, each one housing a twisted reflection of a child, all of them familiar yet wrong, faces of laughing children spinning into nightmarish grins. "Mommy, come play?" they chirped in unison. At first, their voices rang sweetly like wind chimes, but the words warped, dripping with malice. "No! Where's Emily?" Lisa shouted, but the room hummed with their laughter. Desperation clawed at her throat as she scoured the nursery. The cribs seemed to shift, rearranging themselves in the darkness. Panic thrummed through her veins. If the real Emily was here, somewhere among the husks of these twisted forms, what shape would she wear? A sudden wail echoed, chilling her spine. It sounded like a child begging, no, pleading. "Help me! Emily!" The light flickered, drawing Lisa's gaze to the far corner. There, bathed in the soft glow, she saw her. A silhouette, curled up and shaking. With a single push, Lisa threw herself forward, but before she could touch her, the darkness surged, a monstrous tide that pulled her back, laced with angry whispers. "You can't take her! Choose!" The figures in the cribs began to slam against the bars, laughter morphing into shrieks of rage. The room shifted, walls closing in, suffocating her with grief. Behind her, the dark corridor loomed, taunting, vast and eternal. "What do you want from me?" Lisa cried, staggering among the cribs, stretching for Emily. She reached for the child-shaped shadow, whose eyes glistened with tears. Join us," the nursery echoed, vibrating with the relentless chant. "No!" Lisa fought, swiping her arms towards the cribs. "Not like this!" Suddenly, her daughter's figure erupted from the shadows. "Mommy!" Emily cried out, but the child's voice was laden with an eerie echo. With renewed purpose, Lisa rushed for her, body igniting with motherly instinct. She crawled into the crib, pulling Emily into her arms. But as she held her, the child began to squirm, shifting under her grasp. The hope shattered as she felt the boyish charm of the grin return dark and sinister. "No! You're not Emily!" Lisa screamed, an icy terror coursing through her as she pushed away the facade. The nursery erupted, shadows swirling like a storm. The cribs shook, rattling violently, as bizarre creatures lunged at her. She could barely breathe under the weight of their desires, yearning hands reaching out, seeking connection and chaos. At the brink of despair, Lisa searched wildly for an exit in the chaos. The door she had entered from now seemed a distant echo. Would it lead her to safety or deeper into this nightmare? "I want to lose her!" she shouted, clutching Emily's form as she thrived in the whirlpool of shadows. But the nursery mocked her, darkness tightening its grip. With a wild shout, she bolted for the door, arms wrapped tightly around the vital warmth of her found daughter, pushing against the suffocating swirl of despair. But as she reached the exit frame, would she escape, or would the voices snatch her back into their hungry embrace? The doorknob jiggled in her grasp, and she felt cold breath at her neck, whispering one final taunt. With a desperate twist, Lisa yanked the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge, as if the door itself had become part of the sinister nursery. Panic washed over her, thick and suffocating. Shadows danced around her, clawing and whispering, a cacophony of voices begging her to stay. "Mommy!" The figure in her arms screamed, the innocence of it twisted by the darkness coiling around them. Lisa clutched Emily tighter, feeling warmth seep from the child, unnaturally cool in her embrace. There was an urgency now, a haunting compulsion, drawing her to something deeper in the darkness. The shrieks of the cribs echoed louder, a storm of fury, hungry for her resolve. "Get away from us!" Lisa hissed through gritted teeth. She pressed her back against the door, feeling the chill of the metal seeping into her skin. The room shuddered, and the cribs creaked ominously. Something wriggled at her feet, a face, a small hand reaching out from the confines of a crib. "Mommy, don't leave us!" it cried, a voice scraping against her heart. "No!" She felt tears stinging her eyes, the wicked joy in their voices churning her stomach. "You're not her! You're not my Emily!" Darkness swirled, a vortex of twisted laughter and screams, drowning out her panic. Lisa's heart raced. She had to escape. She screamed again, desperation fueling her resolve. "I choose Emily. I choose my daughter." As if in response, the doors shifted just enough to allow her a glimpse of something outside, a narrow streak of light, sheer, dazzling, almost blinding. Was it freedom? Or just another illusion? The whispers turned to howls, furious banshees shrieking in rage, clambering over one another in a frenzy. "No! Stay with us! Join us!" 1,000 childlike voices surrounded her, each one more twisted than the last. Lisa pressed her forehead against the door, feeling its chilling solidity beneath her skin. Just then, the image of Emily transformed in her grip, swirling into darkness, a shape flailing, her laughter morphing into something cold and cruel. "No!" she gasped, blinking at what felt like shadows spilling from Emily. She could see through the surface, a glimpse of the true form writhing beneath the illusion. Desperation clawed at her insides. "Mommy! Please!" The voice quivered, the heat of Emily's presence slipping away like smoke. In a last-ditch effort, Lisa turned, her fingers catching the edges of the door, shoving her shoulder against it with every ounce of strength she had left. The whispers crescendoed to a deafening roar, tangible and raw. Just as hope flickered like the dying light, the door gave way with a groan, swinging open to reveal more darkness beyond. She spilled out onto unforgiving ground, but the nursery-esque grasp reached for her, tendrils of shadow pulling at her ankles, desperate to reclaim their prey. In the fleeting moment, Lisa turned to see glimpses of faces, children trapped in a reflection of despair, their expressions morphing into grotesque versions of joy, shaking their heads, agony etched on every feature. The nursery wanted her back. It wasn't done with her yet. She sprinted down the murky corridor that stretched infinitely ahead, leaving behind the cacophony of chaos. But as she fled, a chilling realization gnawed at her gut. Emily had slipped away. "Emily!" Lisa screamed into the darkness, but there was only an eerie silence in reply. The weight of isolation settled, thick and heavy, as if the darkness itself had sealed her fate. Then came the soft rustle behind her, a familiar giggle, echoing through the void like a taunt. The nursery wasn't finished with her, and neither was Emily. "What have I lost?" she thought, heart sinking, the chase now a battle against her own nightmares. As the laughter faded into an uncanny silence, Lisa trembled with the dawning truth. She was alone, yet not alone. Would she find her daughter, or was she too deeply entangled in a nightmarish web of deception? Inescapably drawn toward the shadowy corridor, she pressed ahead. How far would she go to reclaim Emily? Would freedom even be an option, or was she bound to face the darkness, threatening to swallow her whole? The corridor stretched endlessly, its walls closing in like a vice. Each step Lisa took echoed, taunting her with the promise of answers she feared to discover. The air thickened, binding her limbs with dread. Was Emily ahead, waiting in that shroud of gloom? Or was she lost forever among the whispers? "Emily!" Lisa called again, each syllable a fragile plea swallowed by the dark. The walls seemed to breathe with her, a gentle pulse that left a chill crawling along her skin. Suddenly, the giggle returned, louder, more mocking. It bounced off the walls, drawing closer. Lisa spun around, her heart pounding. "Show yourself!" She forced the words out, trembling. Shadows shifted, morphing into twisted shapes that danced just beyond her sight. Fear gripped her in a vice, but she pressed on, each step seeming to weigh heavier than the last. The shadows swept around her like hungry ghosts. Black claws reached for her heels, but she kicked free, rushing onward into the unknown. "Mommy!" the voice cried again, eerily childlike and far too familiar. It drew her further, and with it, hope flickered, brilliant, blinding. "Emily!" She squinted into the dark, straining to see the source of her daughter's voice. But what emerged next froze her in place. A haunting figure stood at the end of the corridor. It was small, with wide eyes that glowed in the haze, a silhouette of everything she feared. The innocent face bore resemblance to her daughter, but it was obscured in a shroud of darkness, like a reflection in a cracked mirror. "Let us play," it chirped, a sinister grin spreading across its unearthly face. And with that, Lisa's heart dropped. This was not her Emily. It was something crafted from her worst nightmares, a puppet of despair. "Get away from her!" Lisa shouted, each word tinged with desperation. The entity tilted its head, a mimicry of innocence, yet the smile twisted into something grotesque. Shadows flared around it, extending out as if to trap Lisa within their grasp. "You're too late, Mommy." "She's one of us now," the voice echoed, fragmented, laced with malice. Lisa pivoted on her heels, adrenaline surging through her veins. The corridor darkened and shifted as if reacting to her fear. Panic clawed at her heart, pushing her to run. She sprinted down the hall, breath ragged, heart hammering against her chest like a war drum. As she sped away, the laughter twisted into wild cackles that followed her relentlessly. Unseen forces shoved against her back, trying to pry her away from her escape. Then silence. A heavy, oppressive silence, enveloping her in a smothering embrace. Lisa halted, spinning around, heart racing. Shadows danced teasingly at the edges of her vision. "Where are you?" she rasped, desperate for a sign of life, of her daughter. The darkness was a thick blanket, stifling her panic and her resolve. It whispered lies, promising comfort with a litany of pained wails. Then, from behind a door that was suddenly there, just to her left, a soft thump echoed. Lisa's stomach twisted. Was it Emily? Heart pounding, she approached the door, her trembling hand reaching for the handle. The eerie stillness pressed against her, amplifying the sound of her heartbeat. "Emily?" she whispered, voice cracking. A whisper of air slithered through the crack of the door, icy and beckoning. Behind it, something stirred. Would it be her daughter? Or yet another deception twisted by the nursery's wrath? She couldn't retreat now, she needed to know. Taking a deep breath, she twisted the knob and pushed the door open, bracing herself for whatever nightmare awaited her inside. But what she found on the other side sent a chill down her spine, deeper than any dark shadow. What awaited her in that dim room? The door creaked open, revealing a dim, cramped room. For a moment, Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Dust motes hung in the hazy air, floating like lost souls searching for peace. She stepped inside, pulse quickening, preparing for the worst. There, in the far corner, lay a small figure curled up against the wall, shrouded in shadows. Lisa's heart surged. The tiny body seemed to tremble, and a rush of hope surged through her. "Emily?" she called, voice trembling. "No, not Emily," a low voice slithered out from the darkness. The figure straightened, revealing not her daughter but a twisted version of her. The creature wore a mask of dirt and grime, its eyes glinting with a sickening familiarity. The room twisted around her. The walls closed in, suffocating her. The eyes of the thing mirrored her own, wide and broken, yet they sparkled with a predatory glint. "What took you so long?" it purred, its lips curling into a smile that sickened Lisa's stomach. "Get away from me!" she screamed, scrambling back toward the door, but the figure moved with disturbingly quick fluidity, blocking her path. "It's dark here, too dark for games." The creature tilted its head, an uncanny likeness to the daughter Lisa had lost. "But don't worry, Mommy, we can play together." The room throbbed with the threat of despair. Lisa's hands trembled, and sweat beaded on her forehead. If this wasn't Emily, where was her real daughter? "Show me Emily," she demanded, desperation clawing at her throat. The entity laughed, a harsh, chirping cadence that echoed within the walls. "You really want to see?" it said, its voice dripping with mockery. "She's here, deep in the dark. She doesn't want to leave either, she likes it." The faux Emily's voice twisted, echoing grotesquely around her as shadows writhed on the floor like living tendrils reaching for Lisa. "Enough!" Lisa yelled, fear and rage boiling over. She lunged forward, pushing the thing aside, desperate for the door. But it was gone, a black void swallowed it whole. The walls seemed to constrict tighter, mocking her futile attempts to escape. Panic surged through her. She should have turned back. She should have run when she had the chance. "Emily!" she cried, shaking with fright. "I'm coming for you." The darkness thickened, choking her words, leaving only silence in its wake. Then she heard it. A soft whimper, a familiar sound that shattered her resolve. "Mommy!" The voice, fragile and distant, cut through the darkness like a knife. "Emily!" Lisa spun around, desperately scanning the walls, the corners, every shadow. "Help me!" the plea echoed back to her, twisting through her mind, fragile, haunting. Lisa's heart ached, but confusion surged within her as she searched for the source. "Where are you?" she gasped, dread crawling back into her throat. The laughter of the creature returned, loud and unrestrained, washing over her like a wave of ice. "Help me," it cooed, mimicking the sound of her daughter's voice. "You have to play with us to hear her, you have to stay and join the fun." Lisa staggered backward, mind racing, searching for a way out. But the darkness pulsed with life, twisting her perceptions. The walls began to whisper secrets, tales of despair that echoed long before her arrival. It was a nursery, once filled with laughter, now drowning in echoes of torment. With a growing sense of dread, Lisa realized that to find Emily, she would have to confront the puppets of her own fears. Suddenly, the lights flickered in the room, revealing glimpses of other hidden figures moving in the shadows, faces both familiar and alien. Each one wore a mask of twisted grief, eyes hollow, teeth sharp and ready. "Join us," they whispered together, reaching out with clawed hands. The laughter crescendoed, drowning out Lisa's instinct to flee. The weight of reality pressed down as she fell further into their trap. What awaited her in this hellish room of shadow and deceit? Was Emily truly lost, or was Lisa merely a piece in this game of horrors? The thought echoed ominously, vanishing into the darkness that threatened to consume her completely. But in the heart of despair, a flicker of resolve ignited. She would find her daughter. She had to before the darkness claimed them both. Lisa's heart thundered painfully in her chest, each beat echoing the dread tightening around her throat. The darkness felt alive, crawling over her skin, whispering secrets that sunk deep into her mind like barbed needles. She stumbled backward, her tears pooling in her eyes, blurring the twisted faces that loomed just out of reach. The shadows shifted, convulsing and dancing like wild animals hungry for prey. She fought against the rising tide of panic, focusing on the memories of Emily's laughter, the warmth of her small body nestled against her. "I'm coming for you, sweetie," she whispered into the void, her voice breaking under the weight of fear. But the twisted semblance of Emily only leaned closer, its grotesque smile widening. "You should have stayed home, Mommy. The darkness likes you here." Every instinct screamed at her to run, but fleeing into the murky corners felt like diving into an abyss. A sudden chill gripped her spine like icy fingers. The hidden figures murmured, their voices a warped chorus that echoed the creature's taunts. Join us," their words slithered around her, binding her in place, drawing her thoughts deeper into despair. She shook her head, desperate for clarity. "No! I will not be like you!" The lights flickered again, casting fleeting, harsh beams that revealed the full horror of the room, walls lined with silhouettes of children who looked like Emily, each one frozen in expressions of terror, their eyes vacant. Her heart squeezed painfully as they reached out, their claws sharper than knives, eager to drag her into their endless misery. But beneath the layers of fear, a defiant spark ignited. "I will find you!" she shouted, her voice strong against the tide of horror. Raw determination surged through her as she slammed her hands into the nearest wall, feeling the coldness of the surface beneath her palm. The stone was real, solid, and it anchored her. "Where is Emily?" she screamed into the depths of the oppressive dark. "Tell me!" Suddenly, the false Emily jerked back, her laughter fading into a chilling silence. Lisa's shout had cracked the air, shattering the illusion. For a moment, a single heartbeat, the darkness recoiled like a living thing, exposing a flicker of desperate light piercing through the shadows. Mommy, the real Emily's voice threaded through the fog, sweet yet hollow, like a haunting lullaby. It came from everywhere and nowhere, reaching her ears but eluding her grasp. Stay away! The shriek of the false incarnation echoed furiously, resuming its menacing approach. Shadows twisted tighter, threatening to consume Lisa if she faltered. Emily! Lisa propelled herself forward, driven by nothing but instinct, pressing toward that elusive light. The laughter turned manic, a cacophony of voices mocking her, echoing with every step she took. One figure lunged at her, clawed fingers scraping her arm, searing her flesh, but she pushed forward, feeling the hard floor beneath her feet as she fought against the tide. Let me go! Lisa gasped, her heart racing, breath strangled with desperation. More voices crawled around her, a symphony of torment. You can't escape, none of us can. With a jolt, she reached the edge of the light. It flickered before her, dangerously flickering, urging her to join its warmth. I see you, Emily! She called, narrowing her eyes against the growing shadows. I will get you out! And then, just as suddenly as the light had appeared, the darkness tightened once more, snuffing it out like a candle. A deep rumble filled the atmosphere, and Lisa felt the ground tremble under her feet. Join us, forever! The figures screeched, and the walls shook with their collective rage. The creeping darkness engulfed her once more, but Lisa pressed on, fueled by the unwavering hope that she could still reach Emily, that love could pierce through the suffocating fear. Tell me where she is! Lisa roared defiantly. Then everything fell silent. An oppressive stillness settled in, thick as a shroud. Had they answered her? The voices faded, leaving only the echo of her question hanging in the dense air. But then she sensed movement, felt a tap on her shoulder, soft and tentative. Her breath hitched as she turned, dread pooling back in her gut. Was it Emily? Or another trick of darkness? Before she could turn fully, the grip tightened around her wrist, cold as death, pulling her back into the depths of despair. Are you ready to join us? A familiar voice whispered behind her. And just like that, fear dissolved into an all-consuming terror. Whose voice was it really? What awaited her in this endless night? The shadows swirled once more, a chaotic dance of darkness ready to reveal their next nightmare. The shadows around Lisa thickened, swirling like a storm intent on trapping her forever. Every whisper echoed in her mind, taunting her, feeding her despair. Join us, the chorus grew louder, merging into a cacophony of lost souls, drowning out her thoughts and tightening the grip of fear around her. But amid the confusion, Lisa seized a fragment of resolve. She had faced insurmountable darkness so far, she could not give in now. I will find my daughter! She shouted, clenching her fists, feeling her heart thunder defiantly against the shadows. With renewed determination, she pushed past the clawing figures, sprinting toward the only flicker of light she could see, an ethereal glow cutting through the suffocating dark. The shadows recoiled as she charged headlong, her fear morphing into a fierce protectiveness that propelled her forward. Emily! She cried, her voice echoing off the walls, mingling with the laughter of hollowed voices. Sweat poured down her face, her breath came in ragged gasps, but she pressed on, the thought of her daughter blinding her against the pain. Suddenly she stumbled into a vast chamber. The air was laced with despair, yet at its center stood a solitary figure, backlit by the incandescent glow, the real Emily, trembling and small, bathed in light that illuminated the dark horrors lurking in every corner. Mommy! Emily's voice sliced through the thick veil of shadows, bursting like a lifeline. Lisa surged forward, arms outstretched, heart racing with hope. But the shadows writhed, darkness coiling menacingly around her feet, whispering promises of despair. The false versions of Emily emerged from the crevices of the room, clawed hands and twisted faces looming ominously, their laughter a savage mockery of innocence. Stay with us! They hissed, their voices dripping with malice. The grotesque shades lunged, but Lisa pushed against the tide, holding on to the belief that love could conquer even the deepest fears. No! She screamed, the word reverberating, breaking their twisted hold for a fleeting moment. I choose Emily. I choose my daughter. As if stirred by her declaration, the shadows recoiled, revealing the path. Lisa dashed toward the light, feeling the warm radiance beckon her, promising safety, love, and home. But as she reached for Emily, the shadows twisted and surged, clawing at her limbs, trying to snatch her back into their abyss. "Mommy! Help me!" Emily cried, a piercing shriek that broke through the chaos. "Just a little farther, sweetie," Lisa encouraged, fighting against the weight of despair that threatened to pull her back. She felt the darkness enveloping her soul, but as she wrapped her arms around her daughter at last, it was like breaking through ice into warm water. Their connection sparked, igniting hope. "Together!" Lisa shouted, her heart swelling as Emily grasped her tightly, eyes wide with fear yet shimmering with trust. With one final push, Lisa dragged Emily into the heart of the light, tearing through the illusion binding them. The shadows shrieked violently, shattering like glass as she crossed the threshold, sending shards of darkness flying across the chamber, dissolving into nothingness behind them. They tumbled into blinding brilliance, collapsing onto familiar grass, the warmth of the suburban sun brushing over their skin, sweet and real. Lisa gasped in disbelief. They had escaped. Around them, the neighborhood buzzed with life. The sound of children playing, laughter ringing in the air, the normalcy was overwhelming. But as Lisa looked around, her heart dropped. The Johnsons were there, framed in sunlight, museum-like figures etched in a tableau of horror. They wore that unbroken smile, eyes dark and hollow. "Welcome back, dear neighbors," they called, voices dripping with sweetness that turned sour in her ears. Lisa clutched Emily, shaking, her heart pounding anew. This wasn't over. And yet, there was something different in the air. Those once friendly faces were now tinged with the colors of her personal nightmare. The shadows stood at bay, but she knew they would return. "It's not safe here, Emily," Lisa whispered, trembling. "Mommy," Emily spoke softly, holding her mother's gaze, and in that moment, Lisa felt the strength of their bond knitted tighter than ever. "We need to leave this place," Lisa affirmed, scanning their surroundings, plotting their escape. They had lost too much already, but they were together now. Together, they could face whatever darkness loomed ahead. As they began to walk away, the laughter of the neighborhood faded into a haunting echo behind them. In the distance, the road stretched wide, leading them toward an uncertain future. The sun glimmered, wrapping them in warmth and hope, and with every step they took, Lisa felt the sinister weight of their former nightmare lifting. Forever bound by love, they would face the unknown. Together. But as the old saying went, "It's always darkest before dawn," Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were merely waiting, lurking just beyond reach, biding their time for another chance to reclaim what they had lost. The finality of the day pressed upon them, yet possibility danced ahead, reminding them that even amidst fear, there existed strength. So as they pressed onward, determinedly walking into whatever lay ahead, Lisa knew one thing for certain: no darkness could ever shatter the bond between a mother and her daughter. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support now. Don't wait even one more second to share.